Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for our August Community AMA. My name is Rob. I'm the Senior Social Media Manager here at SKALE Labs. Apologies, I'm having some video issues today, so you just have this lovely icon of me with my Cthulhu hat on. We are just waiting for Stan Kladko, CTO, and Jack O'Halloran, our CEO, to join the stream. So just hold tight for another minute, and we will be getting underway in just a few moments.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Jack O'Halloran here with SKALE. We're still waiting for a few more team members. I think people are hustling around from meeting to meeting. And we are, there we go, Chadwick. Hey Chadwick.
Hey Jack, I'm right here with you.
All right, awesome. Well, without further ado, let's roll into the Community AMA. As everyone knows, we try to do these at least once a month. We're also doing Twitter Spaces twice a month. We'll try to make sure the information's fresh, but the Twitter Spaces is more of a curated environment or curated overview, whereas these are purely questions from the community. So we're going to dig into it. All right, everybody. And again, for everyone who submitted questions, we greatly appreciate it. First question for this month's Community AMA from Rihanna Henrawan. Pound 2484. Or actually, sorry, here, first one. Can we get an update on Metaport from its Witcheck? Seems highly important to integrating our ecosystem. When will that ship and go live? Well, I think that's a very timely question. Chadwick, I know the Metaport has been around for a while, but as far as partners integrating it, fully QAing it, being able to ship it live in connection with IMA, there was some extra work, but please update everybody, Chadwick.
Yeah, so for those who may or may not know, Metaport is a very useful widget that helps guide the user through managing different token assets on different scale chains. Currently, there's over 22 scale chains that are live on mainnet right now. And the idea or the vision of Metaport is to make all these 22 scale chains really feel like one. So allowing the user to basically transfer tokens between any two scale chains and perform various operations. This is a developer-centric tooling, in that a developer can use this widget, which is sort of white labeled, they're able to scan it and customize it as needed by their dApp or their ecosystem, as well as configure the different parameters of what users are able to do with the widget. Like Jack mentioned, this has been open sourced. It's been available open source for several weeks now. And a lot of SKALE partners have been providing a lot of really great, rich feedback. So right now we're in a very active development and updates of the Metaport widget. I think updates are being shipped almost weekly with all the feedback that we're getting back from the SKALE community and partner ecosystem. So it's live. It's available under the SKALE Network repository under Metaport. There's also a demo integration that shows how the widget can basically be called from any dApp. That's also available under the widget demo repository. And you can follow along as well. There is a separate tab on our public project board system under GitHub, which shows Metaport and all the active issues that are currently being worked on and feature requests being worked on, provided by the SKALE community.
Yeah, so one of the cool things here is we're actually seeing, really seeing live in action the result of just the impact of having many teams work together. So Metaport, the SKALE Labs core dev team, obviously got in and helped create some code, helped create some specs, but this has been a full culmination of projects and chains, the Calypso chain, the Europa chain, and all the respective teams working on those chains. The Brawl chain has been doing a ton of testing. The Crypto Rome chain from Crypto Coliseum has been doing a ton of testing, as well as just many other teams. And so it's been awesome. So one, as we've seen with Ethereum, the more and more people involved, the better things can become, but sometimes they're not exactly as expedient, and the core team has far less control over the timelines. But hey, we're always here to support. As you can tell, Chadwick and Stan, just by looking at us, we're working a lot lately. We're working early to late every single day. I know Stan just finally wrapped up another meeting. He's been grinding since early. Hey, Stan, how are you?
Hey, guys. I have to participate in this AMA.
Okay, well, perfect timing. We're just, getting into some technical questions. So next question is from Jonas, who always has phenomenal questions. Hey, Jonas, thank you. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but Crypto Blades chain block time, he's seen sometimes around 5 to 6 seconds. I've heard something about load impacting block times. And I think, I'm going to paraphrase here, but essentially, I see that Europa often has sub-second block times. So how do you explain the difference? You're on Europa, you're on Ruby, and it's like, boom, sub-second, then you're on Crypto Blades. And there's a lot of things happening across chains. Like, for example, like the proxies they're running, the other load. So Stan, do you want to talk a little bit to latency, to finality, to block times, and kind of, and one, I don't know, I haven't heard, I've heard from a lot of people that the Crypto Blades is actually executing really fast. So it could have been a time thing too. It could have been a unique parameter or something that was happening during a short period of time. But Stan and Chadwick, talk a little bit about variances around latency across different chains.
Yeah, so several things. First of all, SKALE is the only Ethereum compatible network, actually the only network that finalizes things mathematically provable and immediately. So in our case, when you see a block in our block explorer, it has already been finalized. Now, with other chains, you see a block in block explorer, but it will take another several minutes to be finalized, and then if you look 30 seconds later, you may actually see another block because the previous one wasn't finalized. So the block time itself does not matter. So what matters is the finalization time. It's like, if you get paid cash, what you care about is that once this cash is in your pocket, you don't really care if I email you and tell you, okay, I'm gonna pay you $10. You don't really care about how fast the email comes if you don't have this $10 in your pocket, right? That is just totally meaningless. It's a meaningless parameter, the block time. What matters is the transaction, and what matters is when the transaction is finalized. But when it's finalized, is a mathematical term. So it's a complex term for something very simple. When it can't be reverted, right? When you can think that you have cash in your pocket. So on scale, when you see like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever, it's actually the cash in your pocket. On some other networks, on Ethereum, it takes several minutes for transaction to be finalized. On Matic is the same. The fact that you...
And that's why you see these
Right.
time-banded attacks and minor extracted value, right? Because they're taking advantage of the block time finalized or block time executing, where you can see the transaction and the time before it's final, and basically reorder transactions in that window, correct?
Totally, and that's so Scale. From this perspective, I'm not aware of any network which is faster than Scale. I mean that, and for me, what's important is the time to finalize. For the block time, another interesting thing for our network is that we don't produce blocks if there are no transactions. So if there are zero, no one is submitting a transaction, there will be no block produced. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It actually leads to way less storage because we don't really produce empty blocks frequently. So sometimes what happens is that you have like no one is sending a transaction, and then someone is sending a transaction, and then you produce a block. But then the block explorer will show the time difference between blocks, also include the waiting time, right? We were just waiting, no one was sending a transaction, and that's why the next block is like 8 seconds after the previous one. So sometimes you see in the block explorer time differences between blocks, which are large, but it's not a bug, it's a feature. It just means that no one was sending anything, and the network was waiting for transactions. So I think in many cases, that's what happens. Having said that, we're definitely, we're always debugging and seeing. Sometimes it may be that the network got slowly. In every particular case, we can debug and find out what the problem is. And
it's also true, some applications are not set up for sub-second block times, and sometimes the block actually is processing faster than the front end is letting the user know that the transaction executed. So for every single application, there could be variance, but on the back end, there's no variance. So that's something else probably to validate. And just, a learning lesson, because on most chains, you have this incredibly long latency, really long finality, but also slow block times. And the application is not set up to look for that notice immediately and tell the user that the thing happened.
I mean, I can say another thing. I mean, Scale is very clean mathematically. Everything we do is defined mathematically. So at the moment, I would say there's literally no way to get substantially less finalization time than what we have, because our software works pretty fast, but then there are network latencies. If you're sending a network packet, the validator could be anywhere in the world. So it's time to the network latency time, which cannot be avoided. So when people say, sometimes people keep on saying, okay, we have smaller block time. In many cases, it's not even a reasonable thing to discuss. In many cases, it's just a way for people to provide information to other people who don't understand things, because you cannot go beyond the speed of light. There are if you have a blockchain, it means you have 16 nodes or some number of nodes all over this planet, and the network packets need to arrive. And this depends on myriad of reasons, different providers, this thing, that thing. So I can say that at this moment, our block times, for the most part, depend on the network, and the things that we could optimize, we already optimized. We could probably optimize them a little bit more. Maybe in some cases we have a bug or whatever. It can happen. But in general, what other people do, first of all, they show in their block explorer the block time, but then the finalization time, it could be hundreds of times more. Actually, for instance, on Polygon, right, the finalization time is way longer than on Ethereum. So it's minutes before transactions become final on Polygon. The way whatever they show in their block explorer for the block time doesn't really matter. You have to wait 2 minutes, whatever, on Polygon to actually, if you want to have money in your pocket. So then the same with other networks. Unfortunately, there has been many cases where people just like publish these block explorers, these block times. It actually all meaningless. And at some point, I think people will learn to differentiate, and it's very simple. It's not so difficult to understand the idea. Blockchain applications, many of them are financial applications. Financial applications, what matters is money, right? If I sell apples, I want to Jack send me $100 and I will send him whatever, like a huge number of apples, right? But before he doesn't give me the actual $100 in the actual piece, the cash, right? I won't give him apples. If he takes him like 2 minutes to give me this $100, I will wait for it. If he sends me an email in a microsecond and I see his promise to pay me $100, it means nothing to me. So the industry, one of the things we all learn, right? The blockchain industry started crazily, randomly. It's all understandable. It's a new thing. Everyone is exciting, but we all need to learn very simple things, step by step, and we all need to learn to believe in less hype. And the block time versus finalization time, I think it's a huge thing. Block times don't matter. What matters is the finalization time. We already have at Scale the finalization time. I'm not aware of any other network which has this finalization time. And we'll try to improve it. But also, I think I hope we will get to this at some point where the community of blockchain people around the world will become a little more educated in these things, and they will try to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
Stan, let me give a little analogy. Let me take that a little further, because I think this is a great opportunity for learning here. So let's say Stan sold me, let's say Chadwick sold Stan apples at $100 a pound. 10 minutes later, those apples are going for like $130, but their transaction isn't final. Well, I'm going to swoop in. I'm going to like actually step in and like buy them for $100 and then sell them for $130. And I'm going to like swoop that deal. I'm basically going to like time bandit attack because the deal's not closed. And I'm using future knowledge to interact in the past as a miner. Okay. Now that's the problem with not having instant finality, is that if you are selling someone apples, someone else could, use a future price to go in and buy those apples when the thing's closing. Okay. So that doesn't exist on Scale. Ruby Exchange has written really great content around how there's no MEV on Ruby, and we highly recommend everyone check that out. Stan, great answer. Yeah.
Totally agree, Jack. And I'll add another thing that just came up to my mind. Another way to explain it. If I write an application, I write a DApp, right? Let's say I want to start an exchange, or I want to run an NFT hub, right? And I will be writing this website, whatever, OpenSea. So the point is that I, as an application developer, I couldn't care less about the block time. I will only, inside of my JavaScript code, whatever the web page, I will only care about the finalization time, because I cannot show people things which are not final. If I buy an NFT, I need to show to the person, that the NFT has been bought. So for the dApps, the only thing which matters is the finalization time, because you want to show to the user that the user actually did buy the NFT irreversibly, right? And if you show to the user that the NFT is there and then next minute it will get reversed, it can't happen like this. So for application developers, block time has no reason, absolutely no meaning. What is important for DApp developers is finalization time, and they know this. All of the DApp community are very smart people. People that don't know this are like PR people, whatever, journalists. Unfortunately, some of them didn't get this concept, but they're getting it. It's much better than what existed, even a year ago.
And the NFT thing is a good example. I was talking to someone the other day, and what people started doing, and they still do this, is they create bots to front run well-respected NFT wallets. So let's say I'm an NFT purchaser and I've got like this wallet and I'm really good at buying things low and I buy the right stuff. What they do is they set up a bot, and when I go buy my NFT, it says, "Oh, great, transaction confirmed bought." Well, you have an MEV bot that goes and buys it and takes it from me. Okay. Like they're actually front running NFT sales. Okay. And it's just interesting stuff that, so MEV comes, it's interesting now that people are saying So anyways, that doesn't exist on Scale, instant finality. Great answer, Stan. Anything else on that before we move to the next question? Okay, let's go to the next question. I've got a question for Chadwick here, and then Stan, another one for you. So Chadwick, this one's for you. I'm going to combine questions. This is from Tommy, or it could be Tommy because there's one M. And also Umar Farouk 76. Both two questions that are actually very similar. Michelle and Umaruk. Well, when will the Calypso hub be live? And when will Scale have an NFT marketplace? Let's combine that. Chadwick, if you can address that, let's talk a little bit about the marketplaces going live, Calypso launch.
So yeah, the NFT marketplace in the Scale network is known as the Calypso Hub. And the community is really excited about this effort because there's several partners that are making this happen. Part of this is, well, one, the Calypso Hub is already live. So there's a lot of development on the back end of sort of getting all these integrations happening. So there's multiple partners that are making the Calypso Hub currently live today.
So Calypso, again, like really awesome group of people running that. The infrastructure is there and set up. Just plugging in different API visualizers for the different NFT projects. Lots of really awesome NFT projects going live. Already lots of NFTs on Scale. I know there's well over 100,000 NFTs on the CryptoBlade chain. And there's many NFTs across the other chains as well. So all those assets through the Metaport widget can very easily be brought to the Calypso Hub, sold on the NF Trade marketplace, sold through other partners that are going live on Scale. And we're excited about all the NFT marketplaces that will be there. Also, Fireside is going to have a lot of NFTs that are launching very soon. That'll be highly valuable in terms of their utility. We never talk about price, so I was talking about utility, but they're doing some cool stuff as well. Okay, good questions. Good questions there. Okay, next. Stan, this one is for you. 1 second. Okay, upgrades. So this one's actually from Tommy. What upgrades of the Scale network are planned for the near future? And maybe elaborate a little bit, like what's coming in the next 2.1 upgrade?
I mean, the interesting question. Scale is a very typical startup in the sense that we have this lean startup ideology. We released something and then we see what people like, what people don't like, and then we iterate, right? So the right way for us to release features is to see what people need and make a priority. And I think several things which we realized now. Number one, we've been talking for a long time about free transactions. That free transactions are not the same than just low-cost transactions. It's a totally different thing because it allows for different business models. And it's funny enough that Scale was the only project for several years, right? We kept on talking consistently about zero transaction fees, because on internet, when you click in a browser, you don't pay for a click. And on blockchain, you shouldn't pay per transaction, per action, right? So we've been talking about this for a long, long time. The funny thing, we're still the only ones that have it. No one else. And now what we see the growth in the number of transactions on Scale network. We see that the network grows. The people just run more transactions, and it's kind of easy to understand why. If something is free, why not to use more of it, right? So finally, after several years of these fights where we're the only ones saying that they have to be free, the transactions, we're seeing now the fruits of this. Actually, they are growing, and Jack, and all of our business team really works hard to increasing the number of transactions in our network, and we are focused squarely on this one, on increasing the number of transactions in our network. But then, so we removed this one thing which wasn't like really bad thing for the growth, because if we were charged for transactions, people wouldn't use them so much, right? But now we realize that the second thing is UI. Basically, the second reason, there are two reasons why the applications today, the DApps, people don't use them as regular apps. You don't see people like in a subway using DApps, right? So one of them is zero transaction fees, but we solved this problem. But the second one is UI. The UI of current DApps is terrible, and we were going to be working squarely improving the UI. We already released the Metaport, which is going to be part of Scale Release 2.1, and there will be more improvements to Metaport. But in general, our really big focus is usability. We are squarely focused on usability for Release 2.1. And we did announce some things, and we have some other kind of secret things. Nothing is secret, no open source, but still, there will be some more things coming. But definitely, the square focus we now have, because we do have already zero transaction fees, just the only second thing we need is to improve UI. And these are the two big things. And then the rest of them are just small things that help our customers. We really want to get more customers. So if people want this and that, and we keep on adding them. But the two major things, number one, and we solved this already, is transaction fees, zero forever, right? And the second one is UI, and that's really the key we need to solve for people to start using this thing. Because the funny thing is that you can look at the crypto market, all of the zillions of whatever tokens, whatever, and it's a great thing. But you walk on the street and no one is using it. I mean, no one you see. There are crypto enthusiasts, but people on the subway are not using it. Your grandpa don't use it. So, and at some point it will happen. And I believe we at Scale, it's our purpose to make every step necessary to actually let people use DApps, and UI is number one. It's focus number one.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thanks, Dan. Awesome. And the other thing, it's really interesting. It's fun doing this too in this fully open and community environment. And so if you go to GitHub, everything's there. You can read even every bug. There's nobody core team using Jira. It's all, and there's just a lot of people contributing and helping and testing and building and running things. And, as core team members, we don't run a single node. We're kind of like shepherds of the network, just helping, supporting, guiding it the right direction. But there's just a lot of phenomenal people too that are getting involved, rolling their sleeves up and building. And that's really, I think that's what separates projects is over time is who has the strongest community. And that's both on the developer side and on the broader community side. And so, hey, to do that, you need phenomenal tech, you need phenomenal education materials, marketing materials, awareness efforts. but you need the community. So that's it's been fun seeing that to come together. Now, okay, so I'm gonna answer. We've got the questions from Twitter. I'm gonna answer 416's question first, because I like seeing some questions live. I know a lot of people are probably listening live on Twitter right now. However, if you're not on Twitter, if you're here on the StreamYard, say hi. Let us know where you're calling in from. I think there's a lot of chat, a lot of good comments happening. So say hello. We'd love to see where you're at as well. Okay. But a good question. What are Scale's biggest competitors in the space, and how is Scale different? This is from 416bitcoin.x. So first thing I want to say is Scale is, Stan talked about this before, gas free. Okay. So there's no gas fees for end users, but it's also still economically viable. And that goes to the other differentiator for Scale. Scale's not one blockchain. Scale's many, many, many blockchains all working together. And not many, many individualized side chains, but many, many chains that work in a group that have pooled security, collective incentive mechanisms for rewards, for slashing, okay? And so the other piece is there are other multi-chain networks out there, but they're not Ethereum native. Scale is actually built on Ethereum and integrated to Ethereum, brings value back to Ethereum. It also uses security of Ethereum for assignments, slashing, other orchestration efforts. So, and so that's a big differentiator. Scale is also, Stan mentioned, it's the only mathematically provable EVM blockchain with instant finality. Okay, to our knowledge, I have not seen another one live. I know a lot of people are trying to work on this, and it's live, and that is huge. There's no MEV. There's no malicious front running. You buy the apples are yours. And so those are three really big differentiators. And the other piece here, fourth differentiator, Scale can bridge. So all of these different Scale chains, before Scale v1, they could only bridge to the Ethereum mainnet. And then you'd have to go chain, mainnet, Ethereum mainnet, chain. And each time you did that, you had to pay fees. Now in Scale v2, it's almost instant. It's like, it's more like 10 seconds or so. And free to go from chain A to chain B. So you can go from the CryptoBlades chain over to Ruby and trade some tokens. And that's what the Metaport widget, the UI Stan talked about. That's what the UI helps you do. Okay. So Scale is, with all of those things combined, like we're really, as a community, as a decentralized project, very well positioned to be successful in getting the most, our goal is to see how many developers we can help, how many applications, how many users, how many transactions can be happening on the network. And then you'll see the TVL follow, you'll see the other metrics follow, but users and transactions are where our North Star is. And in June, I'll give everyone a quick statistic. So in June, after Scale v2 just went live, we had 63,000 transactions, okay? July, 1.1 million transactions. August, already 2.5 million with a total of 4.251 million. And each day it keeps growing and growing and growing. So if we can get up to 3, we need 500K. It's going to be close to see if we're going to get there. We already have 2.5 in August, but if we can get to, our goal is to 3x the July number. Okay, so that's where the North Star is now, is lots of users, lots of transactions, and none of that's possible without those values we talked about earlier. Okay, thank you, 416 Bitcoin. Good question. Okay. Also, I know a lot of these comments are from YouTube as well, so not just Twitter. All right. Next question here. All right. So let's see. Okay. So I'm finding one for Chadwick. I'm finding you a challenging one, Chadwick. We got to throw you a curveball here. All right. So Chadwick, what are the key milestones on the Scale roadmap? And any key things that we can look forward to? And we had another question from someone else saying, why isn't there a roadmap? So I think you can correct that person and update the other person at the same time. The person who asked the roadmap question was Ferry, Ferrey. Thank you, Ferry.
Sure, happy to take that. So to answer the second question, there is a public roadmap. It's very granular, very precise, and that's available on the SKALE Network GitHub repository. Actually, Rob, if I could share my screen. So here's the SKALE Network repository. It's at github.com/SKALE Network. And under the project tab and under the SKALE engineering tab is everything that the core team and external contributors are working on. Up at the tabs at the very top, you can see more like a product layer viewpoint. So you can see everything that's scheduled for SKALE 2.1 release, as well as a separate roadmap for things currently being worked on for Metaport. So I encourage the community to definitely pore over this. This is everything that's slated and working on. So now, and this has been up for a while, so anyone can see exactly what's going on, be able to comment and suggest issues as well. So please, I encourage everyone to go here just to keep abreast of what's happening, what's currently in the current cycles for the core team, as well as what's slated for the next release.
Yeah, and you know what, Chadwick, let's talk about this for a second. So the nature of how open source, SKALE is a community good, okay? So the nature of how open source community good projects function is that it all has to be public, okay? And so I know in the past, some people said, hey, how come you done an AMA and however long, like we want these answers, we want answers. Well, the answers are always here. There was product board being used before and some other tools, but it's all here in GitHub. And, there's just, an amazing amount of interaction, collaboration, support happening, and, community product, community owned, community governed, and all here on GitHub.
Cool. I can stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Great. So let's see here. Stan, we got a question about security. This is from Prajit. How do you deal with liquidity concerns and how do you protect the safety of user assets? What does SKALE offer in terms of security, and will you be adding more security features in the future? So just talk high level about security and what features. I know there's even more cool features being built.
Overall, we consider SKALE to be a security company because long term, it's not going to happen short term, but long term, people in the crypto space are going to differentiate in terms of security. So we consider ourselves a security project, a security team. There are two things we already have. First thing, we are open source, and open source is always long-term. Open source is better than closed source because just more people look into the source code. I can tell you the story. Before starting SKALE, I was running a security lab for the US government for more than 7 years actually. And I've been working with pretty much, you name it, all big companies in Silicon Valley and analyzing security for the US government. And when I kind of started the job, I thought I would be like James Bond, going into these companies and trying to find some super complex things. What I learned is that in many cases, security problems are trivial. It's just that no one pays much attention to them. Because if it's closed source, no one sees it. And corporations, they do have this tendency to have deadlines. And if you have a deadline, what you're going to choose? Hitting the deadline, meeting the deadline, or fixing another security problem. So in a closed source environment, it's unavoidable. There are huge, very simple security holes. And then people are like, oh, these teenagers, they broke Microsoft. How can it be? Well, it's a disease of closed source. The fact that no one wants security and unless you got hacked, and then it's too late. So, but open source is different. Everyone can take a look, and people find problems and like point you to those problems. But then you have a chance to fix them. And in particular, Chadwick has been running our security program, and he can tell you more. But we've had wonderful help from outside, people who just read our source code, and all of our source code is open. There's nothing. We don't hide anything. So open source is hugely important. Mathematics is hugely important. We are mathematically provable, so we, from the beginning to the end, we can formulate in mathematics our security model. In fact, we will be publishing a paper or writing a paper describing all of our architecture and design at some point, and nothing will be also hidden from the mathematical point of view. For instance, our bridge, we currently, to my knowledge, we are the only guys that have fully open source bridge, or some, we call them this thing IMA, right? Interchain messaging agent. Other people ask them how do they run their bridge. I don't know really. Like Polygon has a bridge which has four hours wait time, but how it's done, no one knows. Really, literally, maybe there's some humans involved. I don't know. So we open source. We are mathematical, and every day we do some things for security. In particular, definitely at this moment, we are really putting lots of effort into security of our bridge, IMA. More and more things, very actively improving the security. At this point, I'm not ready to tell you guys more, because security is one of those things you want to tell things after and not before. So I'm not going to talk to you guys in detail about our new security features. It just tell you that every day we go into engineering and start coding things. At this moment, security is the #1 priority for us.
Yeah, and it always has been, I think, just even to launch, to get things going. But I think what Stan's getting at is how can we, as a decentralized community, keep pushing for greater security all the time? How do you stay ahead? And one is the Scale bridge is already decentralized. There's no actor. The consensus for Scale is the same mathematical parameters that manages bridging. And so if 2/3 of the nodes are bad on Scale, well, the consensus could be broken, but so could the bridge. But if 2/3 of the network is good, but less than 1/3 was bad, well, the bridge can't be, so the bridge can't be broken, neither can the consensus. Now, let's say you take another chain that, let's say they had 400 validators, but then they're only a 3 of 5 multisig or a 5 of 8 multisig on a bridge. Well, if that 5 of 8 multisigs broke, they really only have 8 and a majority security component instead of like a 2/3 of 400, as an example. So bridging is really critical, because that's how we're seeing hacks happen, not in terms of the core consensus being overtaken by a majority, or like malicious validators. It's bridging hacks. All right, Chadwick, can you talk a little further about what efforts does Scale as a network do to try to help, like from a white hat hacking perspective and audits perspective?
Absolutely. So there's several programs that currently Scale Network employs to be proactive in terms of security and vulnerability. So there's an active HackerOne bounty program on several of the code bases, including Scale Consensus, including libbls, which is the key C++ BLS threshold signature library that's employed in a lot of the Scale Network security operations. And those programs have been active for greater than 2 years now. Oh, that also includes our SGX repository. So those have been very active. We've had a lot of really great, thoughtful submissions, even such great submissions that they even turned on to sort of individual contributions of people helping provide insight, as well as testing facilities to make sure new releases and the code that's already there has been thoroughly tested and vetted in a continual way to update the analysis of those code bases. So that's an ongoing program, and there's been a lot of really great feedback and community contributions that have come through that program. again, that have spawned sort of separate projects as well. And then on top of that, there's an active audit program that SKALE Network continually does at regular intervals. For example, SKALE Manager has been audited, I believe, 3 times already through 2 different parties, one of them of which is the Consensus Diligence Group, who did a very thorough sort of a 2-time analysis around the SKALE token, as well as the delegation protocol, and then did a really huge deep dive into the remainder of the contract logic that defines how SKALE Network works in a decentralized fashion. So everything from network operations to validator registrations to scale chain formations, including the cryptography that defines the distributed key generation protocol, all of that conceptualized in SKALE Manager. So there's been several audits that have been done on SKALE Manager and several audits that have been done on the IMA bridge, the latest of which was done with a collaboration with Code for Arena, which is a fantastic tournament style audit platform. And there's a lot of really great feedback and contributions that was received from there. And that report is soon to be publicly released. So again, going forward, there will always be continual audits of SKALE code bases through the various audit programs like these tournament styles, as well as engaging with HackerOne, as well as engaging with several grant contributors to provide other testing facilities. And then as well, continuing to remain fully open and transparent. SKALE Network and the community truly believes in the value of open source. And that's a big component of the security mechanism. All code is available, transparent for anyone to inspect.
Awesome. Okay. I'm gonna try to rapid fire a couple business side questions, and then we're gonna go back to another technical question with Stan. So, do you plan to go for NFTs in the future for showing our artistic mind to all? That's from Anjana. Right here live. Yes, SKALE is about 70% of the projects that have signed LOIs on SKALE have NFTs in some capacity. A really cool project, 2 really cool projects I'll call out right now, or 3 that are launching very soon. On September 7th, you should check out Crypto Coliseum's new game, Larva Majorum. And there's a really cool initial game launching called Delph's Table that's got some phenomenal artwork, and they even do some AI generated art that in collaboration with real, humans and amazing artists, like really cool stuff. So Fireside, which is Mark Cuban and Fallon Fatemi's new company, they're launching an NFT that really does gating for creators and gates special access content, and they've got some of the biggest names. So Adam W., who's got 16.6 million TikTok followers, is launching. Jay Leno right now has a channel on Fireside. They're launching new television series, and lots of other big celebrities are coming for that. Metaverse Invaders has some really cool art that's launching. That is part of their game. That's a really cool metaverse game. That's launching very soon. It's targeted, I know, for like a mid to late September launch. SKALE will also be launching a artist collective grant program. You'll see news on this coming very soon. I believe this will be pushed out probably in the next few days or early next week at the latest. But you're going to teaser alert here, but there'll be a specialized grant program where 10 million SKALE tokens will be issued in the first phase of this artist supportive NFT grant program. Okay. All right. All right. So another question from Sed. Do I like chickens? Love them. No, I'm actually at a friend's house. That's who that likes chickens more than me, but who doesn't like chickens? All right. Let's see here. Let's go over. We have another question from a long-standing community member, AML. All right. Talking about, what big projects are launching. Hold on. Let me read this. okay, are there significant partners and really big projects due to launch on Scale in the near future? I heard there are big players in the mix. What does Scale Future Horizons look like? So one, any sort of forward-looking perspectives are just, we're here, open book. We work with a lot of partners as a core team. We aren't responsible for what anyone does or does not do. And also, hey, this is us just trying to be. We've got GitHub that shows all the code, and from a business side, sometimes we go into NDAs and different contracts where we're not allowed to talk about what partners are doing. But what I will tell you, you've seen some of the big announcements recently. And one of those is, like I said, Mark Cuban and Fallon Fatemi have a huge project called Fireside that will be going live hopefully in the near future. Okay, NFT gating for some of the world's largest creators and brands. And so that's really cool because one big deal then pulls in all of these major partnerships. It ends up being a partnership that instead of having to go do sales to every single contributor or creator, we can support our partners who have teams that go do that. That's a really good example. Just I talked about that earlier. There's always big deals that we're working on, we're collaborating on. Whenever we can announce them, we do. We have to operate under a lot of compliance in terms of what our partners let us say when, and also just making sure that always we're giving fair, open information to everybody at the same time. But in general, our philosophy is to bring the information to you when we have it, as soon as we can tell you, so that everyone has the same information. Hey, if you look at Scale V2, we went from 60,000 transactions in June to already 2.5 million in August. And so we're just getting started, okay? We don't ever talk about price. We worry about execution. We worry about helping our partners be successful. And so does this whole community and of builders. And that's our main initiative. Okay, so I promise you, everybody's working hard. There are probably 100 people from 100 different companies and over 1,000 people collectively in some capacity working on Scale, and everybody's grinding. So, hey, the market's in a crappy place from a macro perspective, but if there's one true thing about all markets is they're cyclical. We keep our head down, we stay focused, we build, we sell, we do partnerships, we work to make this even more open source all the time, and we control what we can, and don't worry about the things out of our control, and we just execute. So that's all I've got to say about that. But thank you, great question, AML. We love you. You've been around for a really long time. Always appreciate your comments, support. Okay. All right. So a lot of questions actually about the Scale token. Stan and Chadwick, can you talk a little bit about the utility? What is the utility of the Scale token? What does it do for the network? And we've got 5 minutes left. So this potentially is the last question, depending on how long it takes. But we've answered this many, many times. We clearly have new people in the community, so we're going to answer it again. For those of you, I see Flensman here. Flensman knows this one. But for some of you, repeat, but go for it, Stan.
So Scale token is incredibly important for our economic model. Every project needs to have a sustainable economic model. And actually, if you want to have zero fees, you need to go multi-chain to have this model. I will explain why. Let's take an example of Solana, right? So it's a single chain, right? Solana is a single chain, and then what they brag about, they say that the transaction fees are 100 times less than Ethereum, right? So they point to this as a great achievement, but for a single chain, it's pretty much like a dead economic model, because Solana needs to somehow make some money. The network needs to make money in order to survive long term. So if they have 100 times less transaction fees, it means that the network gets like 100 times less money. So how are they going to survive long term then? So, but if you have multi-chains, the economics is totally different, because you can keep on innovating and you can keep zero transaction fees for users, for end users, and then to grow the network. So in case of Scale, our token is used by DApp developers to pay long-term for the chains, right? And then, what we can achieve, our economic model long-term is to have many low-cost chains. We actually are happy about our chains being low-cost for dApps, because we can always just have more of them, very much like on AWS, right? AWS doesn't really make so much money from a single virtual machine, but they have millions and millions of billions probably nowadays of virtual machines. And that's a sustainable business model that makes a giant out of AWS, although they have a tiny profit on any single virtual machine. So the point I'm making is very simple. In order for us at Scale to have a sustainable business model, we need to be multi-chain. Multi-chain is actually the requirement, because then we can actually grow by just having the number of chains, and for every single particular chain, it doesn't need to cost much for the dApps. So the end business model is every dApp pays a long-term rent to Scale network, to all of our validators for running the chains, right? And then the end users don't pay anything, very much like if Facebook uses AWS, when you use Facebook, no one is charging you, but Facebook behind the scenes does pay to AWS, right? So very much the same model, and the Scale token is the key to this model. So long term, we can actually envision a future where Scale has many chains. Every single chain becomes a commodity. We don't have to charge for it. The network does not have to charge for it much, right? But because there are so many of them, the economy grows. All of our other guys like Solana or Avalanche, whatever, they just have a single chain. So it's very hard to imagine a sustainable business model. And the funny thing is that the fact that what they say is, oh, we have 100 times less transaction fees than Ethereum. If they just keep on having a single chain, this business model or this economic model doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Yeah, it is. Scale crypto economics are one of the most critical components, as Stan said. It's because, one, the chains are paid for 1 year in advance. Anytime you buy anything a year in advance or prepay for it, it costs less. That enables the validators to go and they're prepaying the instances they have. Stakers are delegating for long periods of time. It makes a very understandable model. Also, people are renting, dApp developers are renting what effectively comes down to space or real estate in the network instead of transactions. And so they have a certain capacity. They pay the same whether or not they do 0 transactions or 100 million, okay? It's just they're paying for an engine. It's like a car. So transactions make you pay by the mile. Scale is similar to letting you pay for the car for the month, okay? And you've got this, engine, and you've got to make sure you have fuel in it, but you pay a fee in advance for the vehicle and to lease it, as opposed to paying for every mile you run, okay? And but hey, let's say you don't drive it at all; it sits in the garage. Well, you may have wasted some money because you didn't leverage that car to its full capacity, but you've still paid for it up front. The resources are there, and it lets there be a viable economic model that not only has subsidized fees in the short term, like a lot of people do. Scale has inflation that helps subsidize the bootstrapping, and then eventually that inflation goes down and fees go up, and the network becomes self-sustainable, and we can continue to have 0 transaction fees for end users, reasonable prices, good prices for dApp developers renting chains, and a good economic win for validators that are running nodes, and a good economic one for delegators who are staking into the network. Okay. And it's all connected parts. And if, if something's not doing as well, the network can like shrink to ensure that the workers and the stakers and everybody is there in the right capacity. If the network is doing really well, there's means for more people to stake, and validators to set up more nodes, and it creates the opportunity to create more chains, and the supply demand is in harmony. Okay. All right. Well, that took us through to our last question. I saw another question about a SKALE hoodie. There was a SKALE store that was run in a zero, like absolutely not for profit. It was done on, I think, Origin Protocol store, and they shut that down. So maybe somebody, I know that someone was working on getting something set up again. And again, people are like, why are you worried about selling t-shirts? Like, well, we weren't. We're just trying to make sure the community can access materials and actually at completely zero profit. We actually even do it at a loss if you look at the taxes and everything that flows through the system. But hopefully that'll be up and running soon. Keep your eyes open for a notification from somebody so everyone can get their SKALE swag going. All right. Okay, everybody, that's a wrap. Thanks for the awesome questions. We'll keep this going. Stan, Chadwick, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys. Bye, guys. Talk to you next time. Bye.